1, 2, 3, come on!
Dear children, welcome back to English online classes. I am here again with yet another lesson from your literature textbook. Do you like reading short stories? Definitely. Everyone likes to read short stories. But today I am not going to read a short story for you. We are going to discuss a fable from Aesop's Fables. Have you heard of Aesop's Fables? Aesop's Fables is a collection of fables credited to Aesop, a storyteller believed to have lived in ancient Greece between 620 and 564 BC. What is a fable? A fable is a story with animals as characters that conveys a moral. I will give you the characteristics of a fable. Fables are fictional stories. These stories are normally short. They were written a long time ago. The characters in a fable are usually animals that act like humans. The setting is typically outside. The story teaches a moral lesson. The Ant and the Cricket is a fable written in a poetic format. It is about a careless cricket and a hard-working ant. We all know that ants are hard-working creatures. On the other hand, this cricket was a lazy being that just sang day and night and made no efforts to plan for the future. What happens when the winter season arrives? What does he find? Where does he go? Let's read the poem and find out the answers for these questions. The Ant and the Cricket. A silly young cricket, accustomed to sing through the warm sunny months of gay summer and spring, began to complain when he found that at home his cupboard was empty and winter was come. Not a crumb to be found on the snow-covered ground, not a flower could he see, not a leaf on a tree. Oh, what will become, says the cricket, of me? At last, by starvation and famine, made bold, all dripping with wet and all trembling with cold, away he set off to a miserly ant, to see if to keep him alive he would grant him a shelter from grain and a mouthful of grain. He wished only tomorrow he would repay it tomorrow. If not, he must die of starvation and sorrow. Says the ant to the cricket, I am your servant and friend, but we ants never borrow, we ants never lend. But tell me, dear cricket, did you lay nothing by when the weather was warm? Quoth the cricket, not I. My heart was so light that I sang day and night, for all nature looked gay. You sang, sir, you say? Go then, says the ant, and dance the winter away. Thus ending, he hastily lifted the wicket, and out of the door turned the poor little cricket. Folks call this a fable. I'll warrant it true. Some crickets have 4 legs and some have 2. Let's analyze the first stanza. A silly young cricket accustomed to sing through the warm sunny months of gay summer and spring. Accustomed to means used to. So, this is about a cricket who used to sing during the sunny months of gay summer and spring. Here, gay means beautiful. What is the meaning of gay? Beautiful. So, during the summer season and the spring season, the cricket used to sing. Began to complain when he found that at home his cupboard was empty and winter was come. Now, when the winter season came, he started complaining. Why? Because his cupboard was empty and he couldn't find anything to eat. Not a crumb to be found. Here, the meaning of crumb is piece. P-I-E-C-E, peace. So not even a small piece of food to be found on that snowy covered ground. It's winter season, so it's covered with snow. Not even a flower he could find, or even leaves were also not there on the tree. So he became very sad and he was crying and telling what will happen to him. Cricket in this story loves to sing. The poet calls him young and silly because it just sang throughout the summer and the spring without any worries in the world. He began to complain when the winter season arrived. He found that his cupboard was empty and he had no food to eat. Neither a leaf nor a flower could he find. Everything was covered with snow. He started to cry when he imagined his bad situation. Now we can move on to the second stanza. At last by starvation and famine made bold. So what happened? He had nothing to eat. The cricket had nothing to eat, and so because of starvation means hunger. And famine is a situation wherein no food or no water to drink. So that is famine. So that made him bold. That starvation and famine made him bold. And what he did? All dripping with wet. Here dripping means falling in drops. Falling in drops. Since it was raining, he was wet and the water was dripping from his body. And he was trembling. Trembling means shivering because of cold. With cold he was trembling. And so what he did? Away he set off to a miserly ant. Set off means started. Set off is a phrasal verb and the meaning is started. So he started, that means he decided to go to a miserly ant. Why he decided to go there? Yes, because he thought that when he go there, the ant would grant. Here grant means give. Give him what? Shelter from rain as well as a mouthful of grain. He just wished to borrow it and he thought that he will be able to repay the very next day. If he didn't do that, what will happen? He will die of starvation and sorrow. Sorrow means sadness. So because of starvation and sadness, he will die. Finally, out of hunger and starvation, being all wet and cold, the cricket set off to the house of a miserly ant. He wanted to know if he would lend him a mouthful of grain and a shelter from rain. He promised himself that he would repay the ant. He knew very well that if he didn't do this, he will die of hunger and pain. Now, let's read the third stanza. Says the ant to the cricket, I am your servant and friend. So now the cricket reached the miserly ant's house and maybe he might have asked for food and shelter. And what's the reply from the ant? The ant said he was the cricket's servant and friend, but the ants will never borrow or they will never lend. Here, borrow is the opposite of the word lend. So, what is the antonym of the word borrow? Lend. He continued by asking whether the cricket didn't lay anything. Lay by means store. Whether he didn't store anything during the warm weather condition. Okay, and what did the cricket say? He said that his heart was so light and the nature was so beautiful. Here gay means beautiful. The nature was so beautiful that he sang day and night. And again the ant said, you sang, sir, you say. You said you sang the whole day. Then you go and dance the winter away. Now you go and dance during this winter season. Ant said to the cricket that he is his friend and servant, but they neither borrow or lend. He also asked him whether he didn't store even a single grain of food when the weather was warm. The cricket carelessly replies that he sang day and night since his heart was so light and he was so happy that he was not able to store anything. The cricket asked him to go and dance the winter away. The cricket is so foolish that he was not able to understand his mistake till the end. What about the ant? Ant's behavior can be considered either good or bad. It's on the reader's part. Now the last stanza. Thus ending, he hastily lifted the wicket and out of the door turned the poor little cricket. So after telling all those things, that means after asking the cricket to go and dance the winter away, what the ant did? He hastily lifted the wicket. Hastily means quickly. Hastily means quickly. Lifted the wicket. Wicket means here door. What do you mean by wicket here? Door. What he did? He quickly closed the door. And out of the door who was there? The poor little cricket. Folks call this a fable. Folks means people. People say that this is just a fable. I will warrant it true. The poet says that he will warrant that it is true that some crickets have 4 legs and some have 2. So he says that there are some crickets who have 4 legs and there are some with 2 legs. Thus ending the conversation, the ant quickly closed the door and turned the poor little cricket out of the house. Some people say this as a fable, but the poet says he assures that there are some crickets with 2 legs. Here, the poet is comparing the lazy crickets with the 2-legged creature, human beings. The poet wants to suggest that this story is not entirely a fable. Rather, it is related to the real world. There are some people in this world who are as lazy and careless as the cricket in this story is. They don't save anything for the future. They just enjoy the present time. The poet is calling such people as mindless as the cricket is. I hope now you have understood why the poet says in the last line that there are some crickets with 2 legs. Now let's discuss the poetic devices used in this poem. First of all, we can discuss how to find out the rhyme scheme of this stanza. Look at how each and every line ends. Sing, spring. Both the words rhymes, isn't it? Spring, sing. So it ends with the same sound. Sing, spring. So for this sound, we can give the letter A. Okay? And look at the third line. Home, come. So both the words rhymes. Home, come. Both ends with So the sound is different. So we can give the letter B for both the lines. Now see the next line. Found, ground. It is entirely different from the other lines. So we can give the letter C. Now how the next line ends? See, tree, me. Same sounds. See, tree, me. So we can give the letter D. Okay. So the rhyme scheme is A, B, B, C, C, D, D, D. Understood how to find out the rhyme scheme? Right. So if someone asks you to identify the rhyme scheme of a stanza, this is the way to do it. And how to write the rhyme scheme? A, B, B, C, C, D, D, D. Like this you have to write the rhyme scheme. Understood? Now we can move on to the other poetic devices used in this stanza. First of all, look at the second line and the words summer and spring. Summer, spring. Both the words start with the same sound, S, that consonant sound. So, whenever two adjacent words starts with the same consonant sounds, we say it as a poetic device called alliteration. So what is alliteration? Whenever two consonant sounds are repeated in the same line as adjacent words, it is called alliteration. So now you will be having a doubt that these two words are not adjacent words. So if two words are connected by and or any conjunctions or any preposition and all, it won't affect the poetic device alliteration. Okay. Now look at the first line and the second line. The first line continues in the second line without any punctuation marks. So whenever a poet writes a poetry without having any punctuation marks and it continues in the second line also, second line or the third line also, that poetic device is called enjambment. What it is? Enjambment. Children, in one more place in this stanza, enjambment is used. Can you identify it? Yes, the fifth line and the sixth line continues without any punctuation marks. So again, enjambment. Okay. Now we can move on to another poetic device used in this stanza. Look at the seventh and the eighth line. It starts with the same word, not, not. So whenever we start a poem with the same word, that means if a same word continues in the first line, second line, third line, something like that, it is also another poetic device. It is called anaphora. What it is? Anaphora. Now we can move on to the second stanza. Before I tell the poetic devices, you have to identify it and then continue the video. Okay? Did you get the rhyme scheme of this stanza? Yes, it is AA, BB, CC, D, D, D. The same rhyme scheme that is used in the first stanza is followed in this stanza also. So the rhyme scheme is AA, BB, CC, D, D, D. Okay? Then any other poetic devices are used in this stanza? Find out. In the second line, with, wet, ver sound is repeated. So the poetic device used is alliteration. Look at the last line, starvation and sorrow. Sir sound is repeated. So again alliteration. Fourth line and fifth line. Fourth line continues to the fifth line without any punctuation marks. So enjambment. Okay. Next, the third stanza. Find out the rhyme scheme of this stanza. Friend, lent rhymes. So AA, by I, BB, light night, CC, gay say way, D, D, D. So the rhyme scheme again is the same. AA, BB, CC, D, D, D. Okay. Now find out the poetic devices used in this stanza. Yes, enjambment is used in the third line and the fourth line and fifth line. Isn't it? Third, fourth and fifth, you could see that it ends nothing by, that is the end of that line, but no punctuation mark is used, and it continues with a punctuation mark and then again no punctuation mark when it comes my heart was so light. No punctuation mark is there, it continues in the next line, that I sang day and night. So enjambment is the poetic device used here. Now any other poetic devices are there? In the second line you can see that the line, the words we ands never repeated. So the poetic device used is repetition. What it is? Repetition. Now you could see that the second line and the third line starts with the same word, but. Have you seen that? So what is the poetic device used here? Anaphora. Very good. Now Now we can see the fourth line. When weather was warm. What is the poetic device used here? Alliteration. These words start with the same sound v. When weather was warm. So that is alliteration. Now see the eighth line. Sang, say. Again sound is repeated. So here also alliteration is used. Now we move on to the last stanza of the poetry. See, in all other stanzas we have seen that the poet has used 9 lines, isn't it? But here in this stanza only 4 lines are there. And look at the rhyme scheme used. Wicket, cricket rhymes. So A, true, to rhymes. So B. Although the spelling is different, true, to, it rhymes. Okay, so A, B is the rhyme scheme used in this last stanza. See whether any other poetic devices are used. In the first line, he, hastily. Her sound is repeated, so alliteration. So that's all about the poetic devices used in this poem. So we have learned new poetic devices, learn what it is, and whenever I teach the next poetry, before you watch the video itself, you should be able to identify the poetic devices used in those poems. Okay? So, what is the moral that you learn from this poem? Through the story of the careless cricket and the hard-working ant, the poet teaches us the virtue of hard work. The cricket was so foolish that he spent all his time by enjoying. He never thought of the future, and that's why he wasted the present moment. On the other hand, the ant was wise and hard-working. She worked hard and saved for the future so that she could enjoy the future moments. The poet wants us to learn an important lesson in life. One should always save for the future. One should never just enjoy the present time. As you sow, so shall you reap is a proverb that fits to this story. So my dear children, we must be foresighted enough to see our future and make plans accordingly. I hope you have understood the summary and the moral of the lesson. Now let's discuss some questions from the poem. First question, why has the young cricket been called silly? The young cricket has been called silly because he sang day and night all throughout the warm weathers. He made no provisions for the future. Okay? Now the second question. How did he spend his summer and spring? He spent his summer and spring by singing all day and night. Third question. What did he find in winter? He found that his cupboard was empty and he had nothing to eat. Neither a flower nor a leaf could he found. Everything was covered under the snow. Now fourth question, why did he suffer? He suffered because he was lazy and careless. He wasted his time when the weather was fine, so he had to starve in the winter. Whom did he approach for help? He approached a miserly ant for help. What was the principle of ants? Ants neither borrow nor lend. This is the principle of ants. Seventh question, who are the crickets with 2 legs? According to the poet, the people who are very lazy and who didn't save anything for the future are the crickets with 2 legs. Last question, what is the message that you got from the poem. We should work hard for our future. We must always save for the future. We should not be foolish enough to just enjoy the present moment. Now I'll give you the definitions of the poetic devices used in this poem. Alliteration, the repetition of the same consonant sound at the beginning of each word in a line. Enjambment, continuation from one line of verse into the next line without punctuation marks. Anaphora, repetition of a word or a phrase at the beginning of two or more successive lines. Dear children, I forgot to explain this poetic device personification. Personification is also used in this poetry. Throughout the poetry, personification is there. So what is personification? When human characteristics are given to animals or non-living things, it is called personification. Here in this poem, the ant and the cricket are personified as humans, as they are talking and thinking like humans. Have you noticed that in this stanza and throughout the poetry, the poet has used the word he, him, again and again, he. Normally, for animals and insects, we use the pronoun it. We never use he for animals. So, whenever in a poetry, the poet is using he or she or anything that is related with human characteristics, it is called personification. I hope you have understood it.
It's time for us to wind up. Write the summary, the poetic devices, as well as the question answers that we have discussed in your notes. We'll meet again with another lesson in the next week. Bye.